You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. I am your host, Jeff Hinshaw. Thanks for tuning in. Cosmic Cousins is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Cosmic Cousins is released on each new and full moon, and it is here to bring you back into alignment with the cosmos. So thank you for being here as always. Hey Cosmic Cousins, welcome back to another week of the show. This is Jeff Hinshaw. I am an astrologer and a tarot practitioner. I also teach and write and mentor about these topics. And as always, it's an honor to be here with you. My practice is rooted in ritual. So when we gather together, it's ritual. It's on the new and the full moon. And I have some tarot cards out here that connect us to the energy that is available to us on this Aries New Moon. So you can go ahead and get your tarot deck every time we gather. I recommend that. I also have a candle lit here. We know Aries is the first sign of the astrological wheel. It's our personal fire sign. So it is connected to the single flame, as in a candle. So go ahead and light a candle if you can, or just light the internal candle if you find yourself on a plane or in a car or walking in your neighborhood. Wherever you are listening to this is exactly right in this moment. And it's my hopes that this podcast will deepen your connection to yourself. Aries is the sign of the self. Who am I? This is a question we might ask when moving through an Aries transit. Or if you have strong Aries in your chart, Aries Sun, Aries Moon, Aries Rising, or just any of your Aries placements are really connected to the identity. So this is an exciting episode. We're going to go into the invitation of this Aries New Moon. And then in the second part of this podcast episode, we have a conversation about karmic ripening with mentor and teacher Olivia Clementine, who is an Aries moon. And so that conversation is nice and juicy. We go deep into many of the Aries New Moon themes. And then finally, we'll round out this podcast episode with the Astro Weather energy update for April 1st through the 16th. And so that will be a time where you might want to get your notebook out, take some notes, get the ephemeris out. So this is a somewhat new format that we've been working with over the last few months. Part 1 is for the new or the full moon. Part 2, a conversation with a healer or a teacher or a musician that's in our community. And then part 3 is the energy update portion, which covers the energy, the transits between the two lunations, the new and the full moon. At this time, we're ready to go ahead and connect to the Aries New Moon. So you can go ahead and start to bring awareness to your body and your breath as we transition into that now. Each astrological sign is connected to a different part of the body. Aries is connected to the face, the brain, the head. So if it feels okay for you, you could place your hands up here at this sacred part of the body, right here at the head. Breathing into the brain, relaxing the forehead. Maybe you massage the temples, and just allow yourself to arrive here to receive this Aries New Moon download. So the Aries New moons are times when we go within. It's a time where we reset. The sun and the moon are in the same sign, so we shine a conscious light to the unconscious world. So we may have some sort of realizations come up during the new moon. It might also feel like a fresh start, which is very much in alignment with the energy of Aries. Aries being the first sign of the zodiac wheel, in many ways holds a similar vibration to the energy of a new moon. New beginnings happen right around the new moon. So the phrases we have for the Aries New Moon, I'll always offer you 3 phrases And these can act as affirmations for yourself. You can repeat them to yourself, see how they land in your body, or perhaps they are the start of a journal prompt for yourself that you fill in the blank and go deeper into its invitation. And I also know many others who will pull a tarot card for each of these phrases as well. So the phrases we have for the Aries New Moon: I am, I initiate, I start anew. I am. Aries is connected to the identity, to the soul, to the sense of purpose in the world. So I am, I initiate. This is, we could say initiating as in starting a new project, but also I initiate. Aries is a sign of great initiation. When we move through the threshold into a new chapter of our life, and I start anew. So the month of April, it starts off with this Aries new moon. So for some of us, I'm on the west coast of the United States, so the new moon is on Thursday, March 31st at 11:24 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So for some of us, it's Thursday, March 31st. For others of us, it's April 1st, Fool's Day, which is a cool day working with the tarot. It does bring out the energy of the Fool for us, which we could connect Aries to the Fool, the first card of the entire journey. The Fool is free of identity, which I find interesting when reflecting on Aries. So letting go of our identities, letting go of our ego. So April 1st, 2022, and other parts of the world too. So this threshold that's taking us between March and April is here with the Aries new moon. And so we are working with this new moon energy throughout that weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What's important about this new moon is that the sun in Aries and the moon in Aries are both conjunct Mercury, the planet of communication, and Chiron, the wounded healer. So we're working with both Mercury and Chiron. And so the tarot cards that we have out will reflect this. And so first we'll start with Aries. I have the Page of Wands out here for Aries. I drew the Page of Wands twice this week. And so I'm bringing the page out to represent the new life of Aries, the innocence, the beginning, the excitement, and of Wands. Wands is fire, adventure, spiritual inspiration. So we have the Page of Wands out here. The Emperor is Aries' soul growth card in the tarot, and really shows Aries coming into its center, which we'll talk about in the conversation with Olivia Clementine. And so we talk about ways to find your center as an Aries. So these are the Aries energy cards that I have out here. And then we have the Three of Swords. This is a card that I often will connect to Chiron, the wounded healer. I'm sure you know it. It's one of the most iconic tarot images. And I also think I've seen it on quite a few people as a tattoo, but it's usually a red heart that's in the sky, and then there's three swords pierced through the heart, and then it's cloudy and raining. So the Three of Swords would represent the wounds of Chiron, but also the healing that's taking place. So again, the sun and the moon in Aries are hanging out with Chiron in Aries. And then we have the Magician out here as well, which is Mercury's card. Mercury, we do talk about as the planet of communication. Mercury is a planet that is interested in facts and details and writing and logic. But what we don't often talk about with Mercury is its connection to the Magician, and that Mercury is a great planet of divination. And when we look at the Magician in the tarot, this will unlock this for us. But Mercury is also interested in being a channel, whether that is a divine messenger or someone that is bringing information, messages to this plane of existence. The tools that we use, Mercury is connected to small objects and tools and things that we can pick up with our hands. So it's an interesting combo, Three of Swords with a Magician, Page of Wands and the Emperor. And I just put this out here in front of me to offer me a visual while I am connecting to this lunation. And so as we gather, I want to encourage you always to bring your awareness back to your body and your breath, and particularly the parts of the body that Aries rules over. Aries is also going to connect us to the blood in the body. Aries is going to connect us to heat in the body. Aries is connected to things like fevers and ulcers. We can really benefit during the new moon to pay attention to these imbalances in the body. And so some of us might be feeling extra heat at this time. And if that's the case, remember to take deep breaths. Air supports fire and heat. Also drinking extra water and spending time with the earth. So I'm drawn to the magician, how the magician has 4 different symbols that represent the 4 elements on their table. This feels important for us here on this Aries new moon. I'm also drawn to the Emperor, which is number 4, connecting us to the 4 cardinal directions, connecting us to north, south, east, and west. So this is a time to reorient yourself in time and space. If you can, allow yourself to go and watch the sunrise. This is the time of day that Aries rules over. And so during this few-day period, we are gifted the opportunity to check back in with our individual healing journey, Chiron, healing that's taking place in our life. So a moment of conscious awareness, the sun in Aries, a moment of conscious awareness may arise around Chiron themes in our life. This can be abandonment wounds, past trauma. Chiron, the glyph, is a key. And I often think of opening up a drawer and putting your trauma in there, closing the door and locking it. So compartmentalization of our trauma through our intellectual pursuits. Chiron is a very intellectual planetoid. Chiron's orbit is between Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is reality. Uranus is the transpersonal realities of our world, the cosmic consciousness. And so Chiron is shape-shifting between this reality and what's beyond. And so many of us in the astrology community are connected to Chiron. Even if you're not in the astrology community, if you are a seeker on a spiritual path that is learning about healing and working with others as a mentor or a teacher, this is Chiron. And I find, it's interesting that we have Olivia on the show today who is a mentor and a teacher and works with many of these themes. And so again, this moment of conscious awareness may arise at this time around things that you compartmentalize, your abandonment wounds, your past traumas, particularly as it relates to your identity, your sense of self. This is Aries, your survival. And we've been in this energy of Chiron and Aries for some time, and we'll get more into that in the energy update. But this new moon really brings focus to it. And so during this few-day period, again, this is a great time to check back in with your individual healing journey. It's a wonderful time to carve out extra space to be in deep listening, either at the sunrise or close to a flame. So if you are in need of greater support, this new moon is a time to call in and make space for new teachers, new healers, new mentors in your life. This is all Chiron. And then the Mercury side of it is the student. Mercury likes to learn. Mercury likes to write. Mercury likes to travel. So Mercury and Chiron together, there is this student working with the teacher or the healer that's taking place here. And so whether that is within yourself, you're journaling as a form of healing, or whether this is you working with someone that is your mentor and taking notes, this is an energy that is really ripe with new life being Aries. So whatever thoughts, ideas, or words that you're writing or speaking at this time, this is Mercury. Around this Aries new moon, it holds extra potency that is ripe with new life. So be mindful of what you are putting out into the universe at this time. This is true always, but there's something particular about this new moon. Be gentle with your thoughts. Be gentle with your ideas, but also stand firm in them as well. There is an extra potential to bring about grand new beginnings at this time. So some Aries new moon questions that we have for reflection. Who am I? What do I desire? And this is separate from your Career, Capricorn, squares Aries. This isn't about your career. This isn't about your public appearance or your mission here on this planet. This is about you as an individual and what it is that you desire. What adventure do you want to go on? What does your soul long for? What journey of self-discovery are you ready to strike the match to? What does it mean for you to be an individual that chose to incarnate here on this planet? And what does it feel like for you to simply show up without preparation, without expectation, and to just simply be, to be present, to be open to this new moment? I am, I initiate, I start anew. Some Aries New Moon affirmations for us, and you can breathe these into the body. And since this new moon is hanging out with Chiron, Chiron can sometimes actually be very physical in the body. There could be parts of your body that feel wounded at this time. Maybe you place your hands on that part of the body. Aries can actually be cuts and scars and wounds and blood when it's hanging out with Chiron. So maybe you place your hand somewhere on your body that could use a little extra love. And breathe these Aries New Moon affirmations into this part of the body. It is safe for me to be an individual. It is safe for me to be an individual. Breathe that in and notice what it feels like to embody it. Any parts of you that feel like you're blocking this from being true, you can release on the exhale. And on the inhale, you'll just invite in deeper receptivity to these words. It is safe for me to be an individual. Just notice what wants to arise. There could be some sadness around this. There could be some excitement. Just trust and allow it to flow without judgment. I have a right to be on this planet. Breathe that into the body. I have a right to be on this planet. Again, notice if there's any resistance to these words. And if so, can you release them on the exhale? And you can visualize it as smoke leaving the body. Any resistance that you have to this affirmation, I have a right to be on this planet. We're releasing that. And on the inhale, on this Aries new moon, we're inviting new life into these places in the body that might be storing that restriction. I have a right to be on this planet. It is safe for me to be an individual. I am a teacher and a healer. I am a teacher and a healer. Notice any parts of you that are blocking this, any parts of you that don't believe this to be true. Taking a few more rounds of breath, allowing whatever new intention wants to arise that brings you back into your center, connecting to the element of fire, to the hope that lives within you, to the seat of your soul. This is Aries, baby. Happy Aries new moon to you. I hope it's easeful and gentle. At this time, we will continue on in conversation with many of these themes as we have an intimate moment with teacher and mentor Olivia Clementine, who is an Aries moon. Before we get into the next part of this episode, our conversation with Olivia, I would like to update you on a few things. The first one is I just learned that you can now rate Cosmic Cousins, the podcast, on Spotify. So if you feel called, you could leave 5-star review if you listen through the Spotify app. If you listen through iTunes, you can also rate and leave a review. Yeah, on iTunes, you can actually type something out. And so I always like to read a review. And so this one, it comes in from, they didn't put their name, but they put emojis, which I love. The baby face emoji and then 2 sailboat. This feels kind of Aries to me, actually. It's reminding me of the Fool card in the I Light Tarot. Shows the Fool with their dog sailing out into the sunset or into the sunrise. But this is what Babyface Double Sailboat wrote. Great content, starry-eyed emoji, 5 stars. Love the bi-monthly pods. Always look forward to be inspired by Jeff. Short, simple, sweet, just like Aries. I love it. Thank you, Babyface Double Sailboat emoji, for writing in. And thank you to all of you who tune in and listen. And a special thank you to the Patreons of the show. You can go to patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins if you want to support the show. This is a free offering from my heart to yours. So if you feel that this show, you benefit from it in any way, you can make a one-time or a recurring payment. For those that are Patreon members, right now you have access to a 2.5-hour lecture that I did on astrology and the body. And so again, patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins. In addition, I do have a few other announcements. The first one is I'm hosting the Brooklyn Fools Tarot Journey from July to December this year. This is a 22-week journey through the major arcana of the tarot, in which I also weave in astrology throughout that entire journey. It's a ritual immersion. And so this is the first time ever that I'll be hosting the journey twice in 1 year. And it's the first time I'll be leading the journey from the summer solstice to the winter solstice. So if you're interested in learning more from a soul-centered, embodied, esoteric practice that weaves together both tarot and astrology, sign up for my mailing list. There's a link in the show notes. I'll be releasing more information in the coming months. And also, if you like to just receive a reminder about the new and the full moons, you can also sign up for the newsletter. I send them out only on the new and the full moon, just like the podcast, with the link to the new podcast episode. And then there's some other, juicy information and pictures and things like that in the newsletter. In addition, I have openings for both astrology and tarot readings that are available for April, May, and June. So if you would like to deepen your connection to yourself and to your astrology or tarot practice, it would be an honor for me to work with you in this intimate way. And so that's all of the announcements I have for you. I do just want to remind you that after our conversation with Olivia, we will go into the energy update portion of this podcast episode. This is for the deep dive students, the last part of the episode where we will go into detail, transit by transit, about what's going down the first half of April. So that will be something to look forward to. But for now, let's go ahead and transition into our conversation with teacher and mentor Olivia Clementine as we go deep into a conversation about karmic ripening. Okay, so today on Cosmic Cousins, I'm really excited to introduce you to a friend of mine that we met in person probably about, almost 8 years ago now. But today with us on the show is Olivia Clementine, who is an Aries Moon with Libra rising and a Pisces sun. I got that right. Yes. You're like, I don't know. I mean, you're not an astrologer, and I don't always just have astrologers on the show, but you have astrology as a vocabulary in your life. And so I'm going to read a little bit of your bio, and then we'll see what doorway that opens for us to walk through. So Olivia works internationally with individuals, couples, and groups, adults and youth, offering pathways to move in the direction that invites awareness, possibility, and homecoming. For nearly 2 decades, Olivia has delved into immersive research in the realms of relationship, consciousness, and elemental medicine. So I'm going to pause there because there's a lot there for us. And I just want to say welcome to Cosmic Cousins.
Thank you. It's such a joy. I feel like my cheeks are going to hurt from smiling.
I know, I'm finding myself smiling a lot too. And which makes me, I kind of want to reminisce a little bit about the first time that we met, because I think that always, that first impression thing rings true. And the way that we met was really magical because I was leaving for a road trip with our mutual friend, Adriana, who I know a lot of the listeners of the show have done Body Temple or have connected with Adriana in some way. But we were on our road trip from Brooklyn to LA. So already it was this like epic adventure moment, but you were our first stop on the road trip. And I believe you were living on the water. Maybe it was a farm, some sort of farm situation. And you led a tea ceremony on a full moon out on a dock. And Adriana was playing the harmonium, you were pouring tea, and it was just this magical evening. So that is the backdrop and the context, the first night I ever met you. So could you tell us a little bit about, I don't know, maybe even like that experience? What were you doing living in this magical home? And what's the tea ceremony? Are you still working with tea? These are some questions I have for you right now.
Yeah, I love that. I remember that. And it actually ties into like a drop of our pre-recorded conversation around karmic ripening. So at the time I'm still working with the language, but I was a part of a farm, and maybe the language would be like I co-stewarded a farm, but even still, that's some kind of sense of I am doing the work. But basically I was in relationship with land for many years, that particular land, and the earth there was growing all kinds of amazing things, vegetables and botanical medicine and flowers and greens. And I was living there for many years at the time. So that's where you came and visited, was that a full part of my life. Like I kind of burned through farming really intensely. I kind of do everything very fully. So I was like fully farming for, a decade or something. And then you met me during that lifetime. And at the same time, I was doing regular full moon and new moon ceremonies, tea ceremonies / guided meditation with the farm community, and then just anyone that happened to be in the area. So they were always outside in the elements. So we had this one really amazing weeping beach where the limbs would go into the earth and out. And so we were kind of held in this space. That was one area on that beautiful land. Remember that? It's so incredible.
I have photos of that.
Yeah, such a teacher, that being. So you just be held in that. And then the other was on that land, on the water, which was the Hudson River. So we were right along the Hudson River. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting for me to think about your sun, moon, rising and how it feels reflected in that first meeting that we had. Because as a Pisces sun, this does connect us to water and also to just magic and mystery and spirit. And that was very much alive and present. And even just the ritual of pouring tea, just that connection to the water element. But knowing that you're a Libra rising, and this was something I remember when I asked Adriana what your sign was before I knew your astrology. And Adriana was like, I don't remember, she didn't remember. I was like, she was like, what's your guess? And I was like, I think you're a Virgo, because I knew that you connect to the earth and you connect to herbs, and just, I felt the holistic healing, the reverence of Virgo. And then when I found out you were Pisces, that's the polar sign to Virgo. And as a Libra rising, Libra is all about balance. So it puts your sun in Pisces in Virgo's house. And so there's always this balance when you're looking at a Libra rising's chart. So that made sense to me. It was like bringing the spirit and the magic to the earth, Virgo, as a Libra rising. And Libra rules over the sunset. And that moment, that tea ceremony was at sunset. And then the Aries moon, I'm hearing reflected in what you're saying as this, you say you fully go into things. And then it's like, you were like, that was almost like a different lifetime. And Aries wants to start new adventures and have new pathways. And so I feel that Aries moon quality coming through in what you're sharing too. And we're gathering today for the Aries new moon, which is coming up at the end of the month on March 31st. So this phrase that you used, karmic ripening, feels so much like Pisces, which is karma going into Aries, which is ripening. And that's so much of this time of year, even from Pisces into Aries season. So when you say karmic ripening, could you go a little deeper into that? Because this was a phrase that came up before we started recording. I was like, we have to talk about this because it feels so like present for us.
Yeah, I think it's a really important term as a society, as humans being a part of the world, not the directors of the world. Karmic ripening for me means that we are patient, we watch how the world and us are in play, and we allow things to ripen in their right timing. And what we see often in the world right now is our minds are going ahead of ripeness. It's like, well, we have to solve, there's a problem, we need to solve it, or I'm feeling discomfort in my body, let me just move ahead of that and go do something else. And we're kind of doing things preemptively that then will create, it's not the end of the world in some cases, right? Like in many cases, we can say those preemptive actions sometimes are the perfect lesson, right? Like we can use that language as well. We don't have to do everything perfectly, but I think karmic ripening and really being in tune with karmic ripening is a gift and like the lesson of this next unfolding of humans being a part, not the center of all that's unfolding in creation. And so karmic ripening is like, in the example I gave, is like I fully farmed, and then I like completed all those seeds, all the seeds for farming in that kind of like intensity I was doing it. I was complete with all the seeds. And then when I was complete, something else ripened, and I followed that thread of karma. And then you see what happens then. So it's kind of this just being a part of all of the things that are happening around and paying attention to completion states and becoming, and most of the time being in the becoming. Rarely are we actually at completion, but sometimes it happens and then we're like completely complete. And then we turn our gaze to something that's on the verge of going to flower, then fruit. So does that make sense?
It does. I'm feeling so much of what it must feel like to be a Pisces, which is the end of the cycle, and also an Aries moon, which is the beginning of the cycle. It's this interesting cradling of two very different worlds, but it's like a rebirth moment. I'm feeling the flexibility and the mutable quality of Pisces, of flowing and letting go of things when it's time to let go, and that Aries hope and renewal. And so right now at this time, we're in Aries season. We're coming to the Aries new moon, but there's so many planets in Pisces. Yeah. So the energy of right now is very much something that you might live in and dwell in always as a Pisces with an Aries moon. And I love this, what you're saying, because it's coming back to this relationship that we hold to the elements and to earth and to cycles. As humans, we might come up into our mind and separate ourselves from our body or from the planet, and not trust that when something has run its course, that it's completed. I want to share with the listeners some of your studies, and because it takes us back to the earth too. But as we had been talking, you were a farmer for many years in relationship with the elements, grew vegetables, greens, flowers, botanical medicine, but you also have formal training and apprenticeship in traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, Cherokee, Western European, and folk medicine. But beyond schools, your main teacher is the earth and the way of nature. And so I love that you included that. And it sort of, for me, when I read that, it anchored me back in, even in my own astrological practice, what originally drew me to astrology was that it connects us to nature. And you just follow the sun seasons. Well, Aries is the beginning of spring on the northern hemisphere. And so a lot of what we know and love about Aries, also we can find in the medicine of nature around us. When you hear that read back to you, that your main teacher is the earth and the way of nature, I know you wrote this, but is it bringing up anything for you now in context to even what we're talking about with karmic ripening?
I really like the way of nature because it's like any time we're in the midst of a human experience, nature always has a teaching. Like there's no part of us that's not welcome. So, so often there can be a difficulty, a shame towards ourselves, a feeling like we could have done something better. We could have let our karma ripen differently. But like karma and its nature is vast. It's like everything is included. We always think, oh, I did this well, and so my karma should ripen well. It's like, but it's not just you. It's everything in the world is part of what you're engaging in. So I love nature because the way of nature, what it brings up is just this bigger view of everything's included, like the horrific storms, tornadoes, tiny little blossoms that are just showing up in spring that are so delicate. It's like you don't even want to breathe on them because it's so precious in that moment. It's the full spectrum of sensation and emotion. So I think like the way of the karmic ripening and the way of nature just allows there to be everything woven into it, rather than this kind of we're difficult on ourselves. We're mean to ourselves. We have a lot of pressures on ourselves as humans. And the minute we pull ourselves back into nature, as we kind of like a lot of that weight, a lot of the sense of seriousness, of self-focus gets dispersed into that vastness of nature. So yeah, they're completely interwoven, I think, the karmic ripening seeds and Earth as teacher and the way of nature.
It's so powerful. And that even that symbol of the seed sprouting, this is a symbol for Aries. It's that new life. And so that's some of what we all might be feeling this time of year. And particularly as we come to the Aries New Moon, this, out of all the new moons, this is the one that's most ripe with new life and new potential. I love connecting to your relationship to the earth and to this Piscean Aries cusp energy that we're working with. And I want to get into your Libra rising too. And the Libra rising is your relationship coaching, like working with individuals and couples. And so I'm so curious how that comes into play with your background and all of this earth medicine and magic. And I want to just share that I was able to do a one-on-one session with you a few months ago, and it was a pivotal moment in my life. Like it shifted everything. Like I feel like the work that we did together in that hour session, it was almost like lifetimes of work that I felt took place in that time. So yeah, the Libra rising is working with people one-on-one. It's also bringing balance and peace, balance within the self, which I felt after we worked together. Like I felt there was like a recalibration that was happening and a mirroring. So what is the interest for you as like you're mentoring people, you're working with people one-on-one, and you're also working with couples? Did that come after all of your studies with folk medicine, and how does that intersect with one another?
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed our session, and I got to I did a session with you as well, an astrology reading. We could talk about later. It was very powerful for me. So I've been doing the consciousness relating work throughout, since my early 20s. I've been the last 2 decades. I've been basically deep in the realm of consciousness and relational work, both through traditional Buddhist study, through living at a retreat center, doing a lot of in-depth meditation, and then training with a lot of different mentors, both through my own experience of needing to expand my own relational patterning. And then after that, just experimenting with people, like noticing ways that people were contracting, exploring ways that they could expand or find more meaningful connection. So it's kind of been something underneath. When I was farming, I was still working with people and studying. It's kind of all just been there. I don't know if it's in my chart, but it's just really hard for me not to do all of it, And I'm so interested in alleviation of suffering. So relationally, I've always been interested in how to help people through going to aspects of themselves they don't see, or through many different modalities of finding ways for people to actually inhabit. Like the thing that's interesting to me is the actual experience of aliveness, the actual experience of being here in a way that satisfies somebody has really come to be the most interesting thing beyond all of it. So even like the elemental medicine, for me now, I'm more a student of nature, but I don't do botanical medicine as much. I have a skincare line, and that is a way for me to express that piece of me. And so And it also supports people be able to like connect with their bodies and lather themselves in incredible, decadent yumminess that I live on myself. But these days I'm really interested in, human aliveness, in connection, in full relationship with all elements, within elements, outer, individuals, and then intimately, sexually, all of that.
Yeah. I'm feeling that Libran balance between, like, saying you have a skincare line and also you're always just dressed so beautifully. There is a connection to beauty and to nature with Libra, but how that balance with the intellectual and the social and the relational. I'm curious how being an Aries moon works in with these Libra rising themes. So what, since we're gathering for the Aries new moon, what has been your experience as an Aries moon? And what sort of, advice would you give others who are an Aries moon? Do you have advice for us? Yeah.
Can you tell me, being such a novice, would you tell me some more qualities of the Aries?
So, there's the personality side of Aries, but I work with soul-centered astrology. So we could talk about the two, but Aries, for me, the Aries in my life that I love and spend time with there is hope springing high. There is a sense of feeling alive when you're with Aries or just in Aries energy, wanting to activate, to start, to go forth. And I feel a shift going from Pisces into Aries season where I'm actually not as concerned about other people. There's a very individual focus. There's a sense of who am I that I always ask with Aries. Like, who am I? What's my purpose? What do I want to do? What do I want? What do I desire? And spending time alone. I think of like a lone wolf with Aries. I'm in a relationship right now, but I'm also like, it's okay for me if I want to go to the coast for a weekend by myself. This is what I feel with Aries. And so Aries inspires that within us. And so as an Aries moon, this would likely be, moon is self-care. So Aries moon could be spending time alone, tending to themselves. And I do know you spend time alone, like a lot of time alone. And being a Pisces sun, Pisces is a sign of retreat. Mm-hmm. Pisces rules over being in that cabin in the woods. And then an Aries moon is like alone. Which is, I'm reflecting that because I know that you have spent like a whole winter in solitude, like caretaking, tending to the land or to a house.
Yeah, totally. I can talk about either of those, the aloneness, hermit nature, or relational, like the fact that I love both so deeply. Happy to go into that. I think like in terms of advice for the Aries person, I think just going into the center, like living in the center. So I think when we can tell in our bodies when we're not in the center, which would mean like, if you're running around in nature, like say you just like go and take your body out into some space and you like move around a lot and you feel what that's like, that aliveness. And then you still yourself after that. Like you're just out there in contact with that experience of aliveness just to get a really physical sensation of it. So running through a field, or if you're in the city, running through the street, just movement, physicality. It could also be through self-pleasuring, masturbation, just touching your body, feeling pleasure. And then stopping all movement and stopping all action and coming into the center of that sensation. Then you start to like, if you do that enough, you start to know just like how, when you're off center, like off of aliveness center in a way, I think that's like, when I think of what you're sharing with Aries, that's what comes to me of like useful advice is like, find out what the center feels like for you, aliveness center, not like, oh, I'm so centered, I'm so in control. It's nothing about control. Yeah. It's just the pulse of life. Where is your pulse of life? And find it through movement and stillness, and then keep doing it enough that you can come back into it to realize if you're numbing out to experience or if you're at some part of it in some way.
Just taking in everything that you're sharing. It's so ripe. I mean, that's a word we use for Aries. It's so ripe and rich. And it's making me, you actually used a phrase, kind of one word was different, but so on Cosmic Cousins, we did a project called Zodiac Queens. And so the listeners of the show voted and decided who was the queen of each astrological sign. And so my Angelou is Queen of Aries, and she has a poem that's titled On the Pulse of Morning. And so you said on the pulse of life, but this is like Aries energy. And even when you were speaking earlier, I thought about that poem because she has the phrase for Aries is I am. And so it's all about the identity. And there's a line in that says, I am the rock, I am the river, I am the tree, I am yours. Your passages have been paid. So there's this, I am the rock. And that feels centering to me too, but also alive and awake. I am the river, I am the tree. And so this image that you're giving of like running through nature, running through the city, Aries is a very physical energy, very physical sign in the body. And then taking that moment to center and to be in that is part of Aries evolution, because Aries without that coming back into the self, into the center, can be, it could not scattered's not the right word, but there's a sense of being so untethered that it's not actually creating with purpose, perhaps. So the consciousness key is important. And Aries is the sign of great consciousness. And when I think of my Angelou, there is such a focus up in the head, which is Aries, being very conscious. Ram Dass is another Aries that I think of, which is about consciousness. Who am I? Why am I here on this planet? What is my center? So these are some of the things that excite me about Aries and about what you're saying. And I also at the same time can feel, Aries becomes soul-centered when it learns about its polar sign of Libra, which Libra is about being in the center and being balanced. So the two of these signs, they create a dialogue with each other, whereas Aries is more about the center within the self. Libra is perhaps in relation with others. So just reflecting back some of what you're sharing so beautifully. And I think that is not only advice for the Aries individuals that you're giving, but also for all of us during Aries season. It's something for us to tap back into. And so this, even you bringing up masturbation, this is a very physical Aries-like quality, is that being in the body and that pleasure. And Aries ruling planet is Mars, which is a planet that's connected to our sexuality. Thank you for all that you're sharing there. And these are some topics that you go into deeper. You have a podcast. So if people are interested in learning more from you, could you tell us a little bit about the podcast and what inspired
definitely.
that?
Well, the podcast is called Love and Liberation. Those are I'm most interested in those two topics, which they're also one and the same in many ways as well. And most of the time I interview a range of guests, philosophers, earth-related philosophers, Dharma teachers, relational guides, and we talk about all sorts of things based on their particular realm of interest. So it's a large spectrum of guests, and once in a while I'll do a solitary podcast and share some information myself from previous things I've done, like classes and things. But mainly I'm listening and talking to these incredible guests on all sorts of things. The range is like, recently we had an Indigenous elder. Yesterday I interviewed a yogi, like an 85-year-old yogi, or another one was like a tantra teacher, and another one. It's very different, but I'm very interested in people that are sharing things in a way that honors the entanglement of our beingness, and then also has pathways for us to connect with our spiritual nature as well. So, and there's definitely some of them are sexually oriented, some are not. It's a nice range. Yeah.
And are these people that you have met along your studies and your travels?
Yeah, it's totally a range as well. Like some of the people I've actually studied with personally, some are friends, some people I've never met, but I just admire their work. And so I reach out to them and sometimes they respond. So, yeah.
Really cool. So we're getting close to the end of our time together. And I like to bring it back to the lunation that we're honoring. And so again, this Aries new moon is on March 31st in some parts of the world, and then April 1st in other parts of the world, depending on where on the globe you are. But this Aries new moon is a time, new moons are a time, can be very internal. We all have different relationships to the lunations. For me, the new moon usually is a time that I like to spend time alone. It's the dark night. And I think that started for me when I was living in the jungle in Hawaii. I noted the moon. I became much more intimate with the moon. And on the new moon night you went to bed when the sun went down because it was dark. So it is, for me, it's a time of rest. And so it's an interesting moment being in the sign of Aries, because in many ways, this would be a night to spend alone and to reconnect to the self and what you're saying, centering. So if you have any tools for us to recenter on the Aries new moon, that would be nice to hear. And also, I'm curious what this time period means for you. Like if you feel coming in alignment with Aries, both sun and moon will be in Aries. So it's a time where we get to realign with Aries and plant new seeds of intention around the Aries themes in our life.
Yeah. I'll do tools second.
Okay.
To reflect on this time. I mean, I've been in deep hibernation. I'm so with the season. So when fall's here, I'm like, before winter hits and like fall's at its end, I still am really into like summer and autumn. And I'm like, I need to be someplace really warm and I need more blossoms and more abundance and verdancy. And then like the minute winter hits me, I'm like, okay, I'll go deep into the cave and I will never come out ever until I'm ready. And I honestly only emerged like a week and a half ago out of the cave of winter. So I really feel that like new seeds blossoming. I totally feel ready for the coming of this Aries new moon. And in terms of tools, I think lately it's just really nice to keep things simple, to just take some time to be quiet. So often we're like looking out for answers or trying to do some very like long technique to receive something. I think it's nice to just sit and receive, like sit in quiet. Potentially, if you can, go out at night or at dusk or dawn. Those are like really powerful in between times, wherever you are. And simply soften the body, like let your body be receptive and see if you can relax the body enough to let some of the previous moon's weight just return back from where it came from. And then be more in the listening, just the quiet, not listening to hear anything in particular, but just giving room in your own being to be receptive and to let just, once again, the karma ripen in its own way, and resting there till you feel complete. It could be a couple minutes, it could be hours, whatever you need to do. And even doing that laying down, just letting it be really nourishing for your body, not this kind of stressful, any kind of way it must appear. Just allowing yourself to receive and be quiet.
You just led us through a little guided meditation there. And while you're saying maybe even laying down, I started feeling my body as soil, and I was just feeling like little seeds about to sprout out. And so I was connecting to nature as you did that.
And I think really just to know that every moment you're sending messages out to the field of consciousness. You're completely interwoven with consciousness. There's nothing, you are consciousness. So often we think we need to have all this effort to manifest, to let go of, but we're sending messages every single moment. And consciousness knows in detail, whether you want to say consciousness, God, spirit, the universe knows in detail our preferences. So to just feel that you're held and that you wouldn't be abandoned at any moment in your rebirth, you have nothing you need to make certain to the universe. It knows exactly in detail, beyond what you could even fathom, what's meant to be for you. So I think the receptivity of the body during the new moon is really a wonderful way to even just access the field.
Thank you.
Jeff, and thanks for, you're just really able to play in all the fields. You're always interweaving, you're always grabbing threads and like pulling them through something else. It's really beautiful to listen to and witness.
Thank you. And we're sending you a lot of love here on this Aries new moon and wishing for you a nice centering new moon.
Blessings, everybody.
Okay, so we've had our deep dive into the Aries new moon and with our conversation with Olivia Clementine, which I enjoyed so much. And now we're ready to explore the energy update over the next 2 weeks. If you do participate in this part of the podcast episode, again, I highly encourage you to become a Patreon member of the show, patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins. And I really, really appreciate the support. So thank you for being here, and let's get into the energy. Okay, so here is our energy update. It's cool that the lunations right now have been lining up with the start of a new month. It makes it nice and clean and easy for us because this is the energy update for April 1st, 2022 through April 16th of 2022. And during this time period, the sun travels from the 11th degree of Aries to the 26th degree of Aries. So we're going to go in order. We'll start with the sun, we'll do the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. We'll climb our way out from the sun on each different planet. I often like to think when we travel on these planets, they're like stepping stones to reaching God or to a higher power. This is astrology. Astrology does not replace our relationship to Source. They are stepping stones. So here we are crossing these thresholds here, and we start with the sun, the center of our solar system. So the sun is in the beautiful personal cardinal fire sign of Aries, the first sign of our astrological wheel. So we're at the beginning of the astrological new year. The sun is the ruling planet for Leo. So Leos, you might deeply relate to the themes of the sun, following the path of the sun. All of us will benefit from following the energy of the sun, but particularly you, Leo. And the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries. So the things that are most notable during this 2-week time period is that on Saturday, April 2nd, the sun is conjunct Chiron at the 12th degree of Aries. Again, this is just a day after the new moon in Aries, which is April 1st in many parts of the world. But the day after, the sun joins exactly with Chiron. So the energy of the new moon carries on into the weekend. And whenever the sun lines up with a planet, that is the day that we get to shine conscious light to the themes of that planet. And it acts as a reset. It is a similar vibration to the new moon. The new moon is when the sun and the moon line up. So this is new Chiron, we could call it. And so, yes, right here at the beginning of the month, right here at the new moon, there's a moment of conscious awareness, which is the sun around healing. Chiron, healing old childhood wounds, particularly as it relates to toxic masculinity, our identity, to our individuality, to our very sense of survival. These are all Aries themes. And so during this few-day period, and particularly on Saturday, April 2nd, it's a very tender day. We shine a light to Chiron, to our wounds. So we are gifted the opportunity at this time to check back in with our healing journey. And so Chiron first entered Aries on April 17th, 2018. So this was 4 years ago. Where were you in April Aries season of 2018? So you can think back to this time period. This is likely when you really began a conscious journey around being an individual who is healing. Then, what was interesting about this, Chiron retrograded back into Pisces in September of 2018 and then re-entered Aries for good in February of 2019. So there was a little bit of that back and forth between Aries and Pisces, which happens. Chiron entered Aries first in April of 2018 and then again in February of 2019. Again, another layer and groove in this healing around the self, self-sufficiency, taking up space, owning your rights to be here on this planet. A lot of what we were talking about in the new moon portion of this episode was related to Chiron. Chiron and Aries transit, it has initiated a new 50-year cycle with Chiron, because Chiron takes 50 years to go around the sun. When you're around age 50, this is when you'll have Chiron return. And so Chiron has an influence in Aries for roughly 9 years. Whatever planets you have in Aries, they are likely things that you're healing. It's likely an area where you find yourself on a healing journey. So for those of you who are Aries sun, is really looking to see when is Chiron around the same degrees as your sun. And so right now, Chiron is at the 12th degree of Aries. So we look to the 12th degrees of Aries in our chart to really see what is going through some sort of initiatory healing journey. When the sun lines up with Chiron, we can become more conscious of these Chiron themes in our life. As we continue to follow the path of the sun, April 12th, the sun in Aries sextiles Saturn and Aquarius. And so this is 10 days later. We're zipping through here. So it's interesting. We go from, I believe it's 1 week into the next. Let's look. Yeah. So no, April 12th, that's Tuesday, April 12th. And so by then we're starting to build momentum towards the Libra full moon, which is April 16th. So the sun in Aries sextiles Saturn and Aquarius at the 23rd degree. How might you slow down your words and communication, Aquarius, so that they are intentional and respected with great authority, Aries, while also intentional and respectful of the community? So now is a time to be responsible as we head deeper into Aries season, responsible when it comes to how you're communicating universal truth, to how you are putting yourself out into the world as an individual. You know, if you're on a new adventure or starting a new idea, acknowledge the collective. When we do that, when we respect the collective, this is when a flow of inspiration will support you in your new endeavors. So that's the energy of the sun over the next 2 weeks. Those are the major transits. So now let's transition to the moon. So this would be of importance to Cancers who are ruled by the moon, or anyone who has the moon strongly placed in their chart or just feels attuned to the moon. Friday, April 1st, this is the Aries New Moon at 11 degrees. It's conjunct Mercury and Chiron. This is a powerful new moon lunation to set intentions around new ideas for expressing your authority through writing and communication, particularly as it relates to healing, psychology, and teaching. On Friday, April 8th, this is the first quarter moon. So Friday, April 1st is the new moon. Friday, April 8th is the first quarter moon. And this is sun in Aries, moon in Cancer. And at the first quarter moon, this is when tension builds. And so it's this critical point. And so it's a point when and where change is either forced upon us or we start to make these movements. And so, you know, in this case, the Cancer moon says to the Aries sun, how might you more deeply consider your emotions? Things around home, around family, around mother, around the unconscious could arise during the first quarter moon. And then we are building up to Saturday, April 16th, which is the Libra full moon. This is the moment we are building up to this Aries season. It is a full moon of power and transformation. It's square Pluto in Capricorn and in opposition to the sun in Aries. So it's a full moon of power and transformation, particularly in relationship to the self, Aries sun, one-on-one relationships, Libra moon, and our career and our public appearance, Capricorn. So we'll go deeper into that on the Libra full moon episode, but that is what we're building up to. Mercury over this time period. Mercury is a ruling planet for Gemini and Virgo, so this may be of interest to these signs and these placements. Mercury is zipping on through Aries and into Taurus over these 2 weeks. Mercury starts out at the 9th degree of Aries and travels all the way to the 11th degree of Taurus during the first half of April. Again, on April 2nd, the Sun is conjunct Mercury at 13 degrees of Aries. So you could look to this part of your chart to see where you are planting new seeds, new ideas. It is a wonderful time to carve out extra space to be in listening. Some affirmations might be nice here. I have a right to create. I have a right to speak. I listen to the ancient wisdom of the land. This would be a soul-centered attribute of Sun, Mercury, and Aries. Then on Sunday, April 10th, this is when Mercury enters Taurus. When Mercury enters Taurus, our ideas begin to slow down. I feel a deep sense of exhale with this transit. This is a wonderful time to start putting your new genius ideas and downloads you've received during Mercury and Aries into physical, practical form. It helps support you in the material realm to reconnect with your body to the divine feminine. So think of Mercury and Aries as planting a seed, and then Mercury and Taurus is when that thought or that idea may begin to grow or even flower. Again, Mercury is connected to travel, so moving slower when Mercury is in Taurus, slow and leisurely walks, communication that is clear and resounding, sharing ideas that are practical, loving, steadfast, and down to earth, seeking inspiration from nature. And this is a nice segue because all of these themes feel very Venusian. So let's transition into connecting to Venus. Venus travels from the 25th degree of Aquarius to the 12th degree of Pisces over the next 2 weeks. So if you are a Taurus or a Libra, this is your ruling planet. And if you are interested in love and beauty and art, knowing where Venus is could be of great importance for you. And right now, Venus is in Aquarius. And if you want to go deep into Venus in Aquarius, you can listen to the Virgo Full Moon podcast episode? Yes, it was the last podcast episode. We interviewed Aaron Pfeiffer, who is a musician and singer based out of Miami, Florida, who wrote a song called Venus in Aquarius. And we talked for about an hour about Venus in Aquarius and listened to some music. I'll drop a little clip of it here. So please check out that song. I love it. I'm hyping it so much. I want it to be, the next greatest hit. Venus in Aquarius, baby. Aaron Pfeiffer. I'll put a link in the show notes to it. Please support this artist. This feels very Venus in Aquarius. Is spending your money, Venus, on others in the collective who are communicating and creating and representing the future that you envision for the collective. So Venus travels from the 25th degree of Aquarius to the 12th degree of Pisces over the next 2 weeks. So that's Venus is covering a lot of ground over this time. And Venus is important for us throughout 2022 and through the first half of 2023 as the north node of fate is in Taurus. So we are evolving towards Taurus, but we have to look to Venus. Venus is the ruling planet for Taurus. And so getting to know Venus over this time period helps us evolve. I'm bringing Venus into my daily meditations. This is the Empress in the tarot. Venus creates vocabulary around bringing us back into harmony and balance with our bodies, the earth, and with each other. So while Venus is in Aquarius, again, consider the Empress card in the tarot and also the Star card, which is Aquarius. When I look at these two cards together, how do your cosmic truths, Aquarius, the Star card, also bring you into greater intimacy with your body, with receiving, and with the earth? One thing I've been noticing in my life that I have been doing during this transit is buying things for the future. It's quite a literal translation. Buying things, Venus, for the future, Aquarius. So for instance, I'm going to see Lady Gaga in concert in September, and I cannot wait. I've never been to a concert quite like that. I've seen Dolly Parton live, which was amazing, but I've never seen quite such an epic pop icon, and I've never bought things that far in advance, so I thought that was very interesting to note. I'm also in my personal life with Venus in Aquarius, and because Venus is at the 25th degree at the start of this month, and I'm Sun in Aquarius in the 25th degree, so I'm sharing my personal take on it right now because Venus is hanging out at my degree. But I'm looking around my home right now. I'm in my office. I have an office. I lived in a tiny little bedroom in Los Angeles for a year and a half while creating this podcast. And when I launched this podcast, I was living in a tent in the woods, making no money. Over the last 4.5 years, I have used my knowledge of astrology. I've shared my knowledge of astrology with you all in the collective, and I've manifested a life for myself. I now live in a 2-bedroom home with a basement, and I have a dog, so I see all of the art, the furniture, my gorgeous dog Biji, all of my clothes that are organized by color, and I acknowledge that all of this has been manifested through me sharing my knowledge of astrology with you in the collective. So Venus in Aquarius reminds us that we can be abundant when we share our intellectual gifts with the intention of bringing about greater interconnectedness with all living beings. So notice where Aquarius is in your chart and what kind of medicine Venus is bringing to it. On a collective level, Mars and Venus are still hanging out. Mars and Venus have been hanging out for over a month. They both entered Aquarius together around, I think it was March 5th. And they were moving through the end of Capricorn, hanging out with Pluto at the end of February. I'm connecting both Mars and Venus moving through the sign of Aquarius. One of the things, there's many things, but one of them is President Biden nominating Ketanji Brown Jackson to be the first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. This has been something that has been in the news. We'll talk about it more when we get to the Mars section, but that's one of the things. Venus is connected to feminism. So Venus in Aquarius brings liberation to feminism. And Venus in Aquarius desires freedom and equality for social movements with socially progressive ideals. Again, I'm going to explore this more in a moment when we get to Mars in Aquarius next, which I'll be spending more time on because it is Aries season and Mars is the ruling planet for Aries. So we will do a little bit deeper dive into Mars. What is important to note is that Venus is here at the end of Aquarius, which means she enters Pisces soon. And so on April 5th is when Venus enters Pisces, our mutable collective water sign. And that is Tuesday, April 5th. This is the Empress hanging out in the star card with Aquarius and now moving through the moon card. So if you're familiar with the tarot, the moon card is deeper. It's a much more emotional energy. It's spiritual Pisces. So Venus in Pisces, when it comes to matters of relating into the heart, we're connecting spiritually, psychically, emotionally. Venus in Pisces is psychic and spiritual and bringing healing to the body and relationship through universal compassion. It's very Queen of Cups in the tarot. This is interesting, Venus entering into Pisces, because towards the end of the month, Venus will meet up with both Jupiter and Neptune. So there is a lot of Piscean energy that's taking place over Aries season. This is a huge signature of the month, this Venus and Pisces transit. Love is swelling. For some of us, this may spark, the lower form of Pisces, anxiety and fear. And if it's Venus, it's anxiety and fear around intimacy and money. So it could be a good time to connect with the energy of the goddess, with spirit. Pisces is spiritual, connecting to a higher power that connects you to abundance, like Lakshmi or Mother Earth. So making offerings and praying to any and all goddesses is a very Venus and Pisces thing to do. it makes me think of Adriana Rizzolo, who is a mutual friend of me and Olivia's, who I had mentioned earlier in the show, but I've had Adriana on the show before. Some of you know her work. She's a Taurus with Venus in Pisces, and so much of her Taurian work around the voice and chanting is connected to making offerings to the goddess, Venus in Pisces, through spirituality, through unraveling karma. So to work with Venus in Pisces, again, this is us at the end of a cycle. Pisces is the end of a karmic cycle. So our love nature, even though the sun is in Aries, we are conscious of starting new beginnings. We are also still moving through a great deal of karmic release. Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, all in Pisces. So the Libra full moon on April 16th will be ruled by Venus in Pisces. While both Jupiter and Neptune are the two ruling planets of Pisces, will also be in Pisces. Jupiter is the traditional ruler for Pisces. Neptune is the modern ruler for Pisces. So there's tremendous spiritual healing taking place around peace and justice, which would be the Libra full moon. While also the shadow, Pisces is a sign of great duality. The shadow could be extreme confusion, delusion, fears from past karmic incarnations around matters of the heart, Venus. So it's like, Venus and Pisces is that deep past life connection. So we might be feeling that in all matters of Venusian themes. So some really juicy energy with Venus and Pisces. This is also interesting because let's shift to Mars. Mars is in Aquarius at the 19th degree on April 1st and travels to the 1st degree of Pisces by April 16th. So Mars is the ruling planet for Aries. So it deeply speaks to the flavor of Aries season. So the most of Aries season is answering to Mars in Aquarius, but at the end, it shifts Mars into Pisces. So let's talk about Mars in Aquarius first. Some famous people with Mars in Aquarius include our Queen of Aries, Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was Sun in Aries, Mars in Aquarius. Some other Mars in Aquarius figures, Michelle Obama, Langston Hughes, Alicia Garza, the founder of Black Lives Matter. Lizzo has Mars in Aquarius, Mr. Rogers, Bessie Smith, Jane Fonda. So a lot of these figures are incredible activists with their pulse on the collective, directing their ambition towards the community and towards the future. They all have a bit of a rebellious streak to them, but also I feel that Saturnian influence of Aquarius where they are role models for us. And really using their words in a mindful and intentional way. So in our own personal lives, you might find that you are having a greater impulse to take action, to exert your willpower and ambition in the Aquarius parts of your chart. I noticed during this transit, it was literally the day that the sun entered Aries. It was around sunset time, and I was walking my dog out the door, and a rather large group of people were socializing and walking down my street, and they nearly stampeded me over. I had to step off of the sidewalk so that they didn't roll me over. I had to stop myself from telling them to fuck off. I was so mad. They didn't even notice me at all. But what I took from that, I was like, oh, this is Mars and Aquarius. It's like the angry group or the angry mob, or just people really excited to be around each other, and they don't mean to be Martian, which is what was taking place here, but they are knocking people off the sidewalk. I've been, that's one way I've been seeing in my personal life. I've also been feeling it in my own life since I am an Aquarius myself. It feels very personal to me. I have Sun in Aquarius in the first house, and I just started a new workout program right at the start of Aries season. So I'm now committed, which Saturn's in Aquarius too, I'm now committed to working with a personal trainer 3 days a week for an hour each. And this is really new for me. And I'm spending money on it. It's Venus is there too. Spending money, Venus, on working out Mars and committing to it, Saturn, for my own personal health, for my own personal well-being. So it is important to just look and see what part of your chart Mars is coming to and how Venus is interplaying with it. A few other things, I'm also noticing that Mars in Aquarius could, we said it could show confrontation in groups or communities or societies. And what comes to mind is Chris Rock making an offhanded joke towards Jada Pinkett Smith at an award show. And this resulted in Will Smith walking up on stage and slapping Chris Rock in the face. If you haven't heard about it, it wouldn't take a lot to just type it into a search engine. It will pop up. So when something transits through Aquarius, it is felt in our communities. It often acts as a microcosm of something much larger, some sort of collective movement or something that needs to be worked through collectively. So that was interesting to note. My dear friend Kenya, who's double Venus on Instagram, did a post. I have had a Kenya on the show before. Did an 8-minute video about Will Smith and talked about Will Smith having an Aquarius midheaven. She was seeing it as Venus and Saturn together was him actually receiving the award, and Mars was hanging out with the moon in Aquarius that night was the confrontation. So a lot of dialogues being created around that. Aquarius is, the community coming together, and maybe by the time Mars reaches Saturn, which we'll get to in a moment, Will Smith's award for Best Actor might be revoked because Saturn needs to put down its, rules in place so that, the tweet that I thought was really interesting around this was that Kathy Griffin, who is a famous comedian, tweeted something about, why don't I look it up so that I don't butcher it? Okay, here it is. Kathy Griffin tweeted that night, "Let me tell you something. It's a very bad practice to walk up stage and physically assault a comedian. Now we all have to worry about who wants to be the next Will Smith in comedy clubs and theaters." So that was a really good point. There are other people who are taking Will Smith's side because Jada Pinkett Smith has alopecia, which is a condition around the hair, and he made a joke about G.I. Jane or something like that. Anyway, the conversation is ensuing, and Mars is bringing aggravation to community. We've also noticed during the Mars and Aquarius transit that President Biden nominates Ketanji Brown Jackson to be the first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. And Senate Democrats are trying to confirm Supreme Court nominee Jackson as quickly as they can, which feels like Mars and Aquarius now that her nomination hearings are over. So this also feels like Venus is connected to feminism and to feminist movements. And then there's Saturn there, which is rules, authority, and Mars is coming in with that activist slant, bringing up confrontations and digging things up. And so there's just a lot of movement happening in the collective. Note that when things are moving through Aquarius, and then look to your chart to see what's in Aquarius and how it is on the pulse of the collective or the group mind. So April 4th, Mars is conjunct Saturn in Aquarius at the 22nd degree. So on April 1st is where we may hit a wall. Mars conjunct Saturn. As Mars is conjunct Saturn, this could be a time where you are tested to really push through. So for instance, for me, when it comes to my workout regimen, Mars conjunct Saturn, I could end up having an injury. Saturn is the body, Mars is aggravation. If that is the case, I am being challenged and put to the test to continue to stay committed, Saturn, to my working out, Mars. So whatever obstacles might arise, Mars conjunct Saturn says, still commit to it. Keep going through, commit to the vision. Again, in the Will Smith instance, Mars conjunct Saturn could be, the rules of Saturn in the community Aquarius saying you no longer receive this award. I am not a mundane astrologer, so I am not using astrology to predict world events or to even look at world events. But when things are moving through Aquarius, it's kind of hard to deny how much our focus expands out to humanity. And we can even see that Saturn has been in Aquarius since March of 2020. And this was representing social distancing, social Aquarius, distance, Saturn. So there's a lot of energy in the sky right now, and Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus, the two final signs of the wheel, the two first signs of the wheel. So we are in this interesting time where we're coming to the end of we also have Pluto and Capricorn, so Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, ends of cycles, beginnings of new ones. It's very unique to this time period. So again, Mars conjunct Saturn in Aquarius at the 22nd degree on April 4th, and then on April 5th, Mars in Aquarius squares the North Node in Taurus. How are we using this extra radical push towards the future to bring greater nurturance and earth healing to our life? So in the case of me committing to working out is slowing down Taurus and being practical in my approach. So you may find the best results when you allow yourself to slow down and to be practical. Then on April 14th, that's when Mars enters Pisces. And by April 14th, we will have Mars and Venus and Jupiter and Neptune all in this collective water sign. Mars enters Pisces just before the Libra full moon, which is on April 16th, so just 2 days before the Libra full moon. And both the Aries Sun and Libra full moon will be ruled by Pisces. They'll be answering to their ruling planets. Sun in Aries, ruled by Mars in Pisces. Full moon in Libra, ruled by Venus in Pisces. While those planets in Pisces will be answering to Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. So although Venus is moving ahead of Mars, Venus is about 11 degrees ahead of Mars at this point, they're still in the same sign. So Mars in Pisces, Mars is like running and Pisces is fog. So think about running through fog, which could be fun and magical, actually. I've done it here in Portland, Oregon. But it can also be dangerous because you may run into something or even off the edge of the dock into the deep waters. So being mindful during this time. Pisces is the sign of collective emotion, of collective water. So Mars in Pisces is taking action in some sort of collective movement, similar to Mars in Aquarius, except now it's coming from a deep reservoir of emotion. It's deeply karmic. It feels more like a tidal wave, particularly with Jupiter amplifying this, expanding this, Neptune bringing a little bit more fog. But Venus is here, thank Goddess, is bringing in a little bit more of the feminine. The last time Mars was in Pisces was 2 years ago when the Black Lives Matter movement was building collective momentum around the world in May and June of 2020. So some really powerful activists and artists have Mars in Pisces. I'll save that for next time that we gather, when we gather for the Libra full moon, because Mars will be in Pisces at that point. Let's keep on expanding now. We've done the personality planets, and now we're ready to expand out to more of the societal planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter travels from the 21st degree of Pisces to the 24th degree of Pisces over the next 2 weeks. This feels important, first off, that Jupiter is now entering the third and final decan of Pisces. And so one way to work with decans is that the first decan of the sign is connected to the traditional ruler, the second decan of a sign is connected to the modern ruler, and the third decan of a sign is connected to the esoteric ruler. So this gives Pisces in the third decan more of a Plutonian feel, which is the esoteric ruler, power, transformation. So look to the 20s in Pisces of your chart. Jupiter is coming to expand these. Friday, April 8th is a notable date for Jupiter. Jupiter in Pisces is sextile the North Node in Taurus and trine the South Node in Scorpio. The trine aspect to the South Node is great, actually. This is a very supportive and beautiful energy. So whatever it is that you're clearing out in Scorpio right now and over the next year and a half, is it the death of a loved one? Is it the loss of your identity and ego? Are you moving through deep ancestral and psychological healing? There is a lot of grief being transmuted and transformed right now with the South Node in Scorpio. And it will begin to reveal itself more in our conscious awareness on the Scorpio full moon total lunar eclipse in May. But for now, Jupiter in Pisces trine the South Node of Fate in Scorpio encourages us to transcend our ego deaths and to connect with spirit. This is Pisces. So when we lean into the Pisces traits that Jupiter in Pisces is offering us, universal compassion, peace, forgiveness, we are rewarded. It's not getting pulled into Scorpio, it is expanding into Pisces. So offer forgiveness to yourself, for any shame or guilt you hold around the Scorpio parts of your chart. Offer forgiveness to yourself for any controlling qualities you might have in the Scorpio parts of your chart. Open yourself up to abundance and healing, particularly on this Friday, April 8th, which is also when the moon will be in Cancer. So there will be this grand water trine. So a great deal of universal compassion is swelling with all this Pisces energy. So it is a time of great prayer, of joy, and abundance. How are you expanding your capacity to love and forgive? You know, the North Node in Taurus is here too. So it's Jupiter and Pisces sextile the North Node in Taurus on this date. And it is beckoning us towards greater commitment, towards love, art, beauty, relationship, hard work, connection with nature. When I think of Pisces and North Node in Taurus, Jupiter and Pisces and North Node of Taurus, it's like taking photographs in nature. Pisces is photographs, Taurus is nature. This could be just a snapshot of how we evolve at this time. Jupiter in Pisces encourages reflective art, the expansion of your psychic and spiritual receptivity, while the North Node in Taurus is encouraging us to invest in ourselves, to be stable through love, through nurturance. Then on Tuesday, April 12th, this is a big one. Out of all of the dates, this is the one to circle. Jupiter is conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Tuesday, April 12th, Jupiter is conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Oh my God, it's at the 23rd degree and 59 minutes. Jupiter is jovial, is philosophical, is expansive. It has a very growth-oriented energy, and it helps us expand our minds. Jupiter in Pisces is expanding our spiritual and psychic gifts. Even if you may not be feeling that, what does this unlock in you? Have you been feeling sleepy? Have you been feeling dreamy? Have you been feeling psychic? What does this unlock in you? Have you been feeling sleepy? Have you been feeling dreamy? Have you been feeling psychic? You know, it is Aries season, but it's quite Piscean. This conjunction only takes place every 13 years, Jupiter and Neptune aligning, which makes it's a pretty uncommon transit. But what makes it even more uncommon is that the last time that they met in Pisces, Jupiter and Neptune, this was in 1856. And they won't meet again until the year 2188. So 2022, the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. The thing is we might sleep right through it. So Pisces is so unknown, we don't really need to know what it means. Pisces is reminding us of that. But it is a time to just allow yourself to be in the cosmic soup of it all. If you feel too Piscean, lean in on our polar sign of Virgo. Get yourself a schedule. Pay attention to the health of your body. Is it time to be in deep listening, deep reflection? Be very mindful of the kind of media you're taking in. We are very absorbent right now. So listening to podcasts that feel really supportive, listening to music that nourishes your soul, restorative yoga, allowing yourself to be in the water, be in the bath, be in the shower, go to a sauna. How are you connecting to water right now? What is it unlocking within you? You might find that at different times there is just a floodgate of emotions that want to just pour out of you. And you might even find it through watching some silly TV show. You know, it's Aries season. I've been watching this new season of Survivor. I haven't watched Survivor since I was a teenager. And, you know, Pisces can be this inner child healing. And I just started weeping during one of the episodes. Maybe this is Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. I think it is. I have been very emotional, but in ways that have felt connected to my past lives, meaning past lives in this lifetime, quite existential and reflective, more so than normal. I kind of always am. I live with Jupiter and Pisces, so I'm getting to know it a little bit more now. But either way, Jupiter is bringing psychic gifts, spiritual, imaginative, musical gifts to us at this time. And it's not really until Jupiter enters Aries that we even really know what it all means, that we even know what new direction we're heading. So just allow yourself to be in this unknown. Anyone who acts like they have it figured out right now it's an illusion. Pisces, they are pulling one over on all of us. Allow yourself to be in it, breathe into it, allow it to reconnect you to the parts of yourself that are connected to universal compassion and peace. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be peaceful and free, and may my actions and words some way contribute to that peacefulness for all. These kind of prayers that you can lean in on, that you may have learned at different times in your life. Pisces is the accumulation of your wisdom when Jupiter's in Pisces, from this lifetime and beyond. So as I'm talking about this, I just feel myself drifting off in this Jupiter in Pisces way, in this Neptune in Pisces way, and that's okay. I kind of let myself do that because it is the stream of unconsciousness. It is poetic. It doesn't have to make sense. It's cyclical, non-linear. Channel it through your work and through your service. So it's an interesting combo, this Pisces paired with Venus and Mars and Aquarius being in Aries season. Saturn, I'm not going to go too much deeper into all of these because we've spent a lot of time already in this episode. But Saturn moves from the 22nd degree of Aquarius to the 23rd degree of Aquarius over the next 2 weeks. Commitment to our radical future. Uranus moves from the 12th degree to the 13th degree of Taurus over the next 2 weeks. We'll talk about that next episode because Mercury will line up with Uranus and Taurus. And then we go into Taurus season. So that will be a major theme for us in the coming months. Chiron moves from the 12th degree to the 13th degree of Aries over the next 2 weeks. We already talked about Chiron a lot in this episode. That was earlier when we talked about the sun and the new moon. And then Neptune moves from the 23rd degree to the 24th degree of Pisces over these 2 weeks. Again, on April 12th, Jupiter is conjunct Neptune in Pisces at the 23rd degree and 59 minutes. We also have Pluto. Pluto is at the 28th degree of Capricorn all month long, preparing for its station retrograde. So Pluto is just hanging out at the 28th degree. Pluto will station retrograde at the end of the month on April 29th. So we'll check in with that more later and what that might mean for us. Eris is in Aries, and we will hang out with Aries. Eris in Aries. Eris is the warrior feminine who demoted Pluto as a planet back in 2005. We'll talk about her on the Libra full moon. She's very important for us, but the Libra full moon will be in opposition to the sun and Eris in Aries. So Eris will be more of a theme for us towards the end of the month. So we'll connect in with that then. So that is our energy update for the next 2 weeks. It's quite a wild ride. This is a very important 2-week time period in the astrology of 2022 with this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. So I hope you're riding the wave of it all. I hope in some way that this podcast is offering you support in navigating that energy. And again, as always, it's an honor for me to be here. My name is Jeff Hinshaw. I'm an astrologer and tarot reader. I also teach, write, and mentor on both of these topics. And if you would like to work with me one-on-one, I do have openings for April, May, and June. And the Brooklyn Fool's Tarot Journey. I'm going to be doing a 6-month journey through the major arcana of the tarot from July to December this year. So if you're interested in learning more, please sign up for my newsletter. And also, if you enjoy this show, consider leaving a review on Spotify or on iTunes. If you write a review on iTunes, I will read it on one of the next episodes. And if you value this, let me know by becoming a Patreon supporter of the show. I put a lot of energy and time and thought and care into these podcast episodes. And so I would graciously receive your support. Sending you a lot of love this Aries season and on this Aries new moon. Take sweet care, cousins, and remember, deep breaths.